What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Matt Goes to the Movies. From what you can hear, we are back with Pirates of the Caribbean, finally finishing up this somewhat marathon of the Pirates movies, and I am super excited to get in this today. Finally, Harrison has joined us again, of course, from the Basement Binge, and as always, Rob is with us. So, Rob, welcome back. It came up rather quick, the end of the Pirates series.
It did. This is a great palate cleanser after what we just subjected ourselves to with On Stranger Tides. So this is my second time through viewing this film. It just wasn't something I'd ever really made time for until you and I got together in your backyard on your giant 80-inch projector to check out. And I was glad that I finally got a chance to see this, was it maybe a month or so ago? And it kind of made me regret that I hadn't seen it before because it was actually quite enjoyable. And I was actually really excited to explore this for a second time and have a chance to sort of think a little more critically about it as opposed to just seeing everything for the first time.
Yeah, I was definitely excited to, rewatch this about a month ago and then do one more rewatch getting ready for the episode. And I mentioned it just a minute ago, but back with us here for the finale is Harrison from the Basement Binge after jumping ship for On Stranger Tides.
Abandoning ship, yes, I would say.
We still haven't forgiven him, but Harrison is back from the Basement Binge. Welcome back, man.
Thanks. I'm so stoked to be here.
Yeah, so, one of the things, Harrison, that we had talked about was, On Stranger Tides for us was not, a fun experience watching the movie. The podcast was fun talking about it, but we wanted to give you a second here to just give a few quick thoughts on Stranger Tides and, give us, out of 5 reels, what you thought of it, just so listeners know, where you stood on Stranger Tides since we've done the rest of these together.
Yeah, this is hard to do because I'm going to be honest. I was really busy. So at first I didn't even watch On Stranger Tides. And then also I was out of town. I didn't just skip out. But then I came back from being out of town. I was like, okay, I got to watch this. I know we're doing Dead Men Tell No Tales coming up. And I started to watch it and it was really boring. And it's like really long. It's like 2.5 hours. And I was like, I've got way too much to do.
Yeah,
I've already lost interest. I'm going to do something else. I genuinely have too much on my to-do list. And then so I kind of just like scrubbed through YouTube clips to refresh my memory. And it just is a disappointment. I haven't finished listening to your podcast. Again, I've been super busy, but I'm about 3/4 of the way through. And I'm pretty much in agreement with everything you said. It's a real shame you guys were talking about Barbossa and how I loved him as a character. I kind of professed my love for him when we did At World's End. And then he's just totally betrayed On Stranger Tides, exclusively talking about that. And it was just kind of bothering. It seems like everything that made the movies memorable is just like tossed out the window. And they're like, okay, here's Johnny Depp and a bunch of pirate ships. We got a pirate movie, and it just doesn't work, which is a bummer because Blackbeard would have been a really interesting villain that was exciting. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Stranger Tides. They're pretty limited because I gave up pretty quick.
So Matt and I kind of had a thought that because you skipped out on us and didn't like subject yourself to watching the full movie, you should have to do a solo episode on something really terrible. And Matt had a couple suggestions that I won't even repeat because they're so egregious. But just let it be known that he's got some thoughts on episodes you should have to do by yourself because of how bad this movie is.
I am curious what at least like 1 or 2 of them are. I'll even write them down.
I'm gonna tell you because you're gonna have to do one of them. So my suggestion is you either have to do Elektra or Catwoman.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So those are my suggestions for you having a busy life and not just being able to fully watch that monstrosity like we had to. But
I will try that. I got my pen out to write it down, and the first thought I had is he's going to say Green Lantern. And I was like, I can do that. That's manageable. And then you said Elektra, and I was like, dang it. That's not manageable.
Yeah, just a real quick little recap there. Like you said, on Stranger Tides, you're like, oh, it's 2.5 hours. I don't have time for this. One of the things that Rob and I said about that movie was that movie is shorter than at World's End, and it feels longer because, like you said, it's just so boring.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying that in the podcast when I was listening to it, and I was like, okay, they gave me permission to skip on it. They agreed.
Yeah, it's really bad, and it feels like that should have been like a standalone movie where, the one that we're going to talk about now, Dead Men Tell No Tales, really feels like this should have been the follow-up if they were going to come back to the franchise from 3. This feels the most connected. Obviously, the characters are back. Well, there's certain things that happen, and we'll get into spoiler territory later. But, it was nice to see a return to form. It's somewhat, so to speak, for this series.
Definitely a return to form. And I think you nailed it. This is much more a sequel to the first, second, and third films and really continuation. There's really only the briefest acknowledgement of anything that happened in the fourth film in this movie. In fact, if you decided, like if somebody that's close to you had never seen any of the Pirates movies and you told them, tell you what, just go ahead and skip 4. Is there really anything you'd have to explain to them for them to enjoy 5 without having seen 4? I'm going to tell you, really not. I mean, the Black Pearl kind of being in the bottle and then him having Blackbeard's sword, maybe sort of, but I don't know. The Pirates series are just kind of like so nutty in general. And there's just so many things that happen that you're just not really supposed to question, because if you question it, it doesn't really make sense. And most of it's magical or supernatural in some way. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? Is there really anything you needed to have seen about 4 to understand and enjoy 5?
No, nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, considering I skipped most of 4 and I hardly remember any of it, no, I was not lost in any way.
Yeah.
Well, enough talk about 4.
Yes, please.
We've tortured ourselves enough. But Harrison, before we get started, once again, I want to give you a second here. Introduce yourself to maybe listeners that are not familiar with your show, and maybe they're tuning in for the first time for some reason here today. Let them know what the Basement Binge is all about, because you've been pretty active lately.
I have, yeah. Thank you for that chance. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Harrison from the Basement Binge, another movie review podcast, very similar to Matt Goes to the Movies, which is good. It makes us both have a lot of fun together, or all 3 of us. So yeah, I review movies, particularly a series that I can binge, trying to make movies meaningful, as the tagline in my podcast says. So recently had a return to form where I actually binged a series, Daniel Craig James Bond's films, in preparation for No Time to Die, including an episode on No Time to Die. It was a lot of work. The reason I was so busy is I was uploading an episode every day, in addition to my full-time job. So it was a lot of work, but it was fun. I really, really enjoyed that series. I was joking with them before this, and in the reviews I said this. I wasn't a James Bond fan at all before I saw those films, and now I am. Like, I wanted to go see No Time to Die again today. I had a day off, and I really was tempted to go again. Ultimately, my wallet convinced me otherwise, but it was pretty tempting. So I guess if you're into James Bond or just into movie review podcasts, go check out the Basement Binge wherever you get podcasts. So thanks again, Matt, for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All of those notes will be, the links for Harrison's show will be inside the show notes here today. And Rob, take a second and, update listeners kind of on what's going on. We had an opportunity to get together and recently, get a new episode out there that was a lot of fun. So what's going on over here at Matt Goes to the Movies?
Yeah. So if you've been following the Pirate series, first of all, thank you. And be sure to interact with the show on all of the social media channels, and email the show as well, mgttmpodcast@gmail.com. That's just, Matt Goes Through the Movies, the initials for that, and then podcast@gmail.com. We always love hearing from listeners. And, we've been talking about our rankings of the pirate movies. Love to hear yours. Are yours different from ours? And, or maybe you're that one person that really liked On Stranger Tides. What are we missing? Tell us. Please tell us. Like, if you're actually somebody who liked that movie, I'd love to understand how. But we got a chance. We've talked a lot about stuff in the MCU on this channel, and it's something that we certainly are incredibly passionate about. And we just recorded an episode last night on Black Widow. It's something that you and I, Matt, had both seen in theaters and thoroughly enjoyed. Or I'm sorry, I saw it in theaters. You created your own theater to watch it in. And that was pretty cool. And this was kind of, I want to say was both of our second chance to go back into the film and explore it. And it's one of the bigger disparities in rankings that you and I have had of all the shows that we've done together. So I would definitely encourage people to go check that out, because it's new MCU content that at the end of the day, if you love it or if you just kind of liked it a little bit, it's still new MCU content, and that's better than just about anything else that you can get.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun going back, revisiting that. So, check out that episode and anything else that'll be linked in the show notes. So, let's get into it. Dead Men Tell No Tales, 5th movie in the Pirates series. Harrison, I'm going to let you go first. Teaser trailer, don't spoil it. What are your feelings on this movie?
Yeah, it was really interesting sitting down to watch it. I, finished a really busy week with James Bond. Like I just mentioned, it's like, Pirates of the Caribbean, ready to review it, to talk about it with my friends. Let's watch this 5th movie. It is going to be pretty good. I was excited to give it a chance. I don't know why, but Disney Plus has really, even before we started the series, because I know it does it based off of what am I trying to say? It knows what you watch, so it recommends that. Before we started watching Pirates, it was really recommending this movie to me. And I was like, of all the Pirates movies, you want me to watch Dead Men Tell No Tales? Really? So I was like, okay, maybe there's some redeeming qualities about it, and they want people to appreciate it. That's Disney Plus's motive. I don't know. So I sat down, I watched it, and as spoiler-free as I can say it, it's good. But it's not a very good Pirates movie, at least in my opinion. There's a lot of things that just, maybe it's because I'm really tired, but they just kind of got old and lost their charm on me. And I want to hear your thoughts as well. I'm really excited too, because there are a lot of things I'm like, oh yeah, we're watching a Pirates movie again. Like Jack Sparrow is here. The music was playing. We got the MacGuffin. The adventure part of it is really fun. Like it really does feel like an adventure. It's not overly long or boring like the last film. Like there are lots of things that were really working. And then the film ended and I was like, yeah, that was okay. Besides that, I don't have much to say. Like I don't have glaring, horrible things that I can point out. And I don't have brightly shining, great things I can point out. I'm just like, yeah, here it is. We watched it. What do you want me to say? So yeah, that's as spoiler-free as I can say.
Yeah, Rob, I'll let you go last and, kind of cap this off. But I think like Harrison, this is a good movie. I think that had On Stranger Tides not happened, this would be a lot easier to like. I do like it, but again, I think the way that we've watched this has spoiled it a little bit for me, where if going back, it was just 1, 2, 3, and we treated this as 4, I do think there would be a little bit more fondness to this movie than what I feel right now. It's nice to see some returning characters back. It's nice to see some of the goofiness that I liked about Pirates come back. But ultimately, it's a series that did lose some luster and, in a way, really felt like this was something that should have been capped off by a trilogy. And maybe they could have spun off and done other things with the Pirates series. Certainly now there's another report that Margot Robbie is definitely attached to a new Pirates movie, which is very interesting to see what they would do there. But I think the legacy that I'll leave with the Pirates series for right now is that it should have concluded as a trilogy, but it doesn't mean that this isn't fun. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Rob, you cap off this portion before we start really getting into it.
Sure. So as far as teaser trailer, talking about this movie spoiler free, really what you're looking at is Jack Sparrow gets himself into crazy adventures. He only survives by sheer luck while searching for a magical MacGuffin that is also sought by an undead or supernatural pirate crew, while two young people fall in love. In the process, a regular person must take up piracy to save their family. All the while, alliances and allegiances change. Also, the music is good. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, guys. I had that about the first one. Hold on, wait, let me check. Okay, wait, no, that's the second movie. That describes the third movie. Turns out that actually goes for the fourth movie too. And this one as well. So, okay, actually, I guess this basically sums up the entire 5 Pirates movies. And this is where you have to decide for yourself, do you like the general, just, what you get when you sit down to watch Pirates of the Caribbean? Do you generally just trust the filmmakers to present you with something that you find entertaining? Because if you do, you will like this movie. It is more of the same. Very generally speaking, it's kind of become a little formulaic. It's kind of become, you know what you're going to get. They don't really push the envelope. They don't really show you anything new. They stick to very tried and true what they've done before. And there's really nothing new here either. But I'm somebody who does like the Pirate series. So to me, yes, I know it's formulaic. I know that we've seen all of this before in very general terms. And I'm fine with that, because if you just give me Johnny Depp kind of stumbling around, getting himself in and out of crazy situations that he only survives by sheerest luck, and you give me the Hans Zimmer score, I'm in. Just give it to me. I'll go see the next one. If it's Margot Robbie, I've seen rumors of Brie Larson being, involved in a pirate spinoff. I'll go see any of it. Just give it to me. I'm good. I'm in. I like it. Just not the fourth one. It's kind of like, it's almost like on Stranger Tides could have been, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's like we don't acknowledge its existence. It doesn't, it's non-canon. It's kind of like what Disney did with the extended universe of Star Wars. They just said, nope, we're going to pretend it doesn't exist, and just took a big eraser and just wiped it all away. If you could do that, then outside of that, I generally love the Pirate series, and I had a really good time watching this movie on my rewatch recently.
All right. Well, some varying opinions here. So let's get into spoilers. From seat to screen here, one of the main points of this movie was the fact that, oh, look at this. Will Turner and Elizabeth are coming back. Now, that's true, but they're certainly not back for more than what amounts to a small cameo appearance. And that was a little upsetting to me. I think the opening is actually pretty good, where his, Will's son finds him on the Dutchman. I thought that was good. It raises some red flags about why Will has turned all barnacly, because he was supposed to be doing the job. I think it raises some questions and some continuity issues that they had talked about at the end of At World's End. Also, too, where he tells his son, like, they know you're here. You have to hurry. And then 5 minutes go by and somehow the crew's not on deck yet. And that's one of the issues with this movie, is there's some really weird shot transitions, like some of the other pirate movies, especially one of the opening scenes with Jack, where there's no way that woman is behind him in the vault if you really look at that scene, and then she magically appears out of nowhere. But, I was really excited for the inclusion of Will and Elizabeth again, and to get them in such a limited role. Harrison, what were your thoughts when they were announced that they'd be coming back? And did you think we were going to get more of them, or did you suspect maybe this was just going to be something small for them?
Honestly, I had no memory that they were cast at all. Like, I don't remember that announcement whatsoever. But what I can comment about is watching the film, and like the Flying Dutchman, at that opening shot when the Flying Dutchman flies out of the water, I was like, hey, is that the Flying Dutchman or is that some ripoff of it? Like we're getting a discount Flying Dutchman, and then it shows Flying Dutchman. I was like, what? And Will was there, and I was like, I got really excited. And then he was gone, and it was disappointing. So it's a bummer that you would bring these people back for that short amount of it.
Yeah, Rob, what are your thoughts on where these guys came and, how they were used?
Yeah, so there's some very strange things about Will Turner's character, and Matt, you kind of touched on it. You start to see the barnacles on him, and I guess what I'd like to me, I immediately wondered, okay, is he so distraught over his curse and having to fill this role of ferrying the souls, from one side to the other, that he maybe abandons it or doesn't commit to the role fully, and that's why he's starting to take on the sort of this more monstrous form. I thought that was kind of interesting, and actually Elizabeth Swann doesn't even have a single line in this movie, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's disappointing when you think about how important those two characters were to the first three films, and then for the fourth one, for whatever reason, they were completely not a part of it at all. To make it seem as though they were a bigger part of this than what they truly were, I don't know. It's the movie is still fun to me, but not as much fun as the high points of the first three movies. And I think part of it is just we've seen that relationship grow between all of these characters over those three films, and then we lose two of the central figures for the fourth one, and really don't get much of them for the fifth one. It's just not as effective. When you swap them out for, Karina and Henry.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, with Karina and Henry, I don't mind so much Henry. I think Karina, for me, my problem isn't with her. My problem is the way that she's consistently treated. Because I don't find the whole anytime she's intelligent that she's a witch, and I get it, like the time frame and everything, but it's one of those things that doesn't work in the movie for me, that every time something happens it's like, she's a witch, oh my god, she's a witch, we can't, like, nothing has like a second to breathe when those moments should be serious. It's just a joke that she's a witch. So again, I don't have a problem with her character. I have a problem with the way everybody else reacts to her character that kind of just makes me not care about her, because she's treated as somewhat as a joke to me throughout most of the movie.
That part is, it wasn't really until you had said that I think that kind of sunk in about how that maybe is a little bit overused of a joke. Maybe you do it once and you can get a laugh out of it. But when it keeps running as a gag, when it's not really that funny of a gag to begin with, I will say that the whole bit about her being an orologist, I actually like that bit. I think it's pretty clever. It might be a little bit of like toilet humor, but I still laughed out loud and found it really funny.
Yeah, Harrison, where do you stand? Because I will say that, for these two, they are certainly, for me, better received than the two jokes we got in On Stranger Tides that I could care nothing about, that were the new love interests. But, how do you feel about two of these new main characters that, kind of seem like the bait and switch? We thought we were going to get Will and Elizabeth, and instead we get these two as part of the main, like, love interest.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about them. They are definitely a bait and switch. They definitely don't have the same chemistry that I felt like Will and Elizabeth had. And they just like, really, like we're doing this whole thing again. I don't know why I'm being so cynical about it. But the other thing that I agree with about the joke as a witch and also the horology thing, that was hilarious. And the whole bit with the goat consistently, I found that very funny. I also think it's funny that, like so many other movies of this time period, the costume designer always looks at a female's costume as like, what are we missing? Stuffed up boobs in a corset that make no sense. And it's so inconsistent. Like, I could see it like, oh, you just came out of the costuming department. Oh, you've been on set for at least an hour. Like, it just, Why is that a thing? And that combined with the joke about a witch and just like how I felt like her character, I forget her name. Oh my gosh, what is her name?
Karina.
Karina, thank you. Just like was kind of flat, like kind of a boring character. And the other thing, she's played by Kaya, who plays Teresa in the Maze Runner movies. If you've seen those, and I hate Teresa, so that kind of just ruins her entire on-screen presence for me.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, you're really onto something, because if you're talking about this series and you're talking about kind of the female lead, Keira Knightley's Elizabeth was much deeper of a character. I found her to be so much more compelling, so much more interesting, so much more range, I think, than what we got with how Karina's written.
Yeah, I think that's really true, that there's not a lot of range here. And her, one of the other things, too, that's unfortunate for her is her part in the story is... I'm trying to think of how to word this, but her existence in the story is almost retconned by the end, that she's only there to serve a secondary character and his overall arc in the Pirates series. It doesn't feel like she's really, to me, by the end of this movie, left to be a character on her own. And since we're in spoilers, I will say she feels more of she's there to get you to Barbossa, which I wasn't really a fan of. Rob, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on that and how she relates to Barbossa?
So when we're about halfway into the movie and she starts talking about she never knew her father, first time through, I didn't think, oh, must be Barbossa. But I will say this, I definitely thought, okay, this is a character we've already met. Like, there's no chance that a character in this kind of film makes that statement and it doesn't end up being somebody we already know. Like, probably somewhat of a main or secondary character. If I would have paused the movie and started like writing down a list of options, maybe I get to Barbossa, maybe I don't. But it's I don't know. To me, that was kind of obvious that it was going to be some kind of twist like that. And when we find out who it really is, I think the bit between Barbossa and Jack was actually kind of fun, but it wasn't like a phenomenal scene that's like really setting this apart from other things. And then we get to the end and, we get to Barbossa's death scene and he only acknowledges her. They actually only know each other as father and daughter for like 30 seconds. And it feels kind of weak. I don't know. There's something about that just didn't sit right. Like, he keeps this secret from her for his own reasons. It feels like this is important to her to know. And they have this moment they share for 30 seconds and then boom, he sacrifices himself. They no longer have, the ability to form that relationship that feels like it's important to him. And then you get that kind of, I actually really dislike when they show the tattoo that he has of the constellation. Like, I don't know, when movies do this sort of thing, and we see this in the Mummy sequel, where all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, I've had this tattoo all along, and I'm just now talking about this important thing in the second movie. Like, I don't know. It just, I didn't love it.
Harrison, where do you stand on their relationship? Because you've been vocal about how much you love Barbossa. So how do you feel he is in this movie? Because he certainly is very underutilized and wasted in On Stranger Tides. So how do you feel like his story ends?
Not a fan. As far as him throughout the entire film, it was... Well, okay, let me take that back. I'm not sure if I'm a fan yet. This conversation is probably how I'm going to decide. Throughout the film, I just thought, like so much of the rest, he was just okay. There wasn't something about it that like, oh yeah, Barbossa is the best. And there wasn't something else where it's like, oh my gosh, they're totally messing with my man Barbossa. And then in the end, it was moving to see him like really kind of care for someone and have that realization that his daughter was there and all that. But the reveal of him being her father with the tattoo and then falling to his death, it's like, Okay. Like it's supposed to be moving, and it just wasn't. And so I'm not sure how I feel about the character, because there's parts of it, like when he finds out that that's his daughter, and he kind of like breathes heavily as he walks over to Jack at the other end of the ship. Like that was a pretty decent scene. And then the rest is kind of just like, oh yeah, like here's an unnecessary connection we have between these two. So yeah, the ending, I just was like, okay, I guess that was the decision that was made. I don't really have much to say about it, and maybe that's just my attitude towards this whole film. That's a horrible response to your question.
Yeah. No, I think it's very valid because, somebody like Barbosa, who was, okay, he's very heavy in the first movie. He is not in the second movie until the very end, but his scene at the end is, dare I say, epic. It's one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise, where he just comes down the steps. I love that. So it's like, oh, he's back. What's going to happen? He is a big part of 3. And then in 4, he is the lackey of, the government, so to speak. And then he finally gets his revenge. But then here, in 4 and 5, he never feels like a main character again, which is disappointing because he showed how good he is when he is part of what feels like the main cast. He feels much more like a side character in these last 2 movies to me, which is upsetting because he has such a great presence throughout through 1 and 3, obviously, since like we said, he's not in the second one. So that's my main problem with this movie, just like on Stranger Tides, is he feels like an afterthought.
Yeah, which is kind of a bummer because normally he's so great. And if I'm being honest, it really feels like all the other characters outside of Jack and Captain Salazar, and even Captain Salazar to an extent, were afterthoughts, which is sad because Johnny Depp, especially in this film, and what he was going through and the way it affects his performance, cannot carry this film on his own. So you need, like, the greatness of the Pirates movies is all those supporting characters. And there's a lot of them missing. You tease us by bringing back Will and Elizabeth. You tease us by bringing back those 2 Redcoats guys, Mulroy and Murtaugh, but then you don't bring back the other 2 pirate friends, the dude with the thing in his eye, the fake eye. And then the other characters they do have, like you said, man, just feel like an afterthought.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, without having like IMDb in front of you or something like that, how many of these characters that are introduced in this movie could you recognize by name? I mean, Salazar, and sure, you can probably get Henry Turner because he's a Turner. But how many of these other characters that you get introduced to for the first time really actually stick?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think Harrison made a very valid point. As good as, Johnny Depp is as Jack Sparrow, in the 4th movie and in this movie, it's really the weight of the movies are on him. And when he just has to undeniably control the movie, it doesn't work as well because part of what made Jack so good was determining how he played off these other characters and what he was going to do. So it's a shame that they kind of really went in the direction of, well, Jack is 100% our guy, and that's who we're going to focus on, because that was the strength of the first 3 movies, is the supporting characters felt like main characters.
And really, when you think about what didn't work in the 4th movie, it's him having to, he's by himself for significant portions of it. Doesn't really interact with Barbosa. It doesn't, obviously we don't have Will or Elizabeth in that movie. Think about his interactions with all of those characters in the first 3 movies. Those characters are kind of his equal. They're just as savvy as he is at times. They're just as devious. They're just as cunning. They're just as smart. They're just as good at improvising on the fly as he is. Obviously, he's much more lucky than they are and always gets himself into these zany situations that they don't. There's not a character in part 4 or part 5 that I truly believe is his equal in those things. I don't believe that about Henry Turner. I don't believe he's more cunning than Jack. I don't believe Karina is his equal in just improvising on the fly, being able to get in and out of situations the way that he does. And that's, I think, where this one isn't as good as at times as what we've seen in, certainly in the first three, ignoring that the fourth one exists at all. The supporting characters don't give Jack enough to play off of. They're not as good of a foil. They're not as good as the second or third person in the scene, because they're just not as well written as Will and Elizabeth, and certainly Barbossa in the first and third.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And, speaking of foils, we've heard the phrase, a hero is only as good as his villain. And the villain in this movie, Salazar, has a history with Jack Sparrow, which we learned through some pretty bad CGI de-aging for Johnny Depp, I feel. Does not look all that great. But Salazar also, upon his initial introduction, again, he even feels very much like an afterthought. The design of his crew is good. The design of his ship is good. I don't really feel intimidated by him. I wasn't all that impressed. So, again, one of the problems is Jack doesn't even have a foil to me to go up against that's compelling, which is another thing that's a little disappointing, because the trailers for this movie really, really made it seem like this was going to be what we wanted after we got the third one. Harrison, I'll ask your thoughts on Salazar first.
Yeah. Okay. I just watched the James Bond series, Skyfall. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. You should watch it. Javier Bardem plays the Bond villain. I, as someone who knows nothing about James Bond, went and saw Skyfall in theaters years ago when it came out. A friend took me. I didn't really understand much of it. The one thing I remember from that movie was Javier Bardem, his name. At a point in my life when I didn't remember actors' names. His performance was so captivating, I've never forgotten his name. And I forgot he was in this movie. I mean, you get someone as talented as him, and then you just write a character who is so one note. His initial introduction, he's really terrifying. I mean, he comes out with a great design, and I feel so bad for those VFX artists having to run all those fluid simulations all over him, and his hair and everything moving like in water. Anyway, fantastic design on him, and he's played by Javier Bardem. This is going to be a great villain, and then it's just oh yeah, I got some beef with Jack, and I want his compass because I'm undead. It's haven't heard that one before. Yeah, and and there's no depth to him. We praised villains like Barbossa we talked about. We've praised villains especially like Davy Jones and the depth that he had and how it worked. And here it's just you just got some revenge against Jack Sparrow. Get in line. Seems like there's plenty.
So, Rob, you mentioned this at the beginning, and I'll get your thoughts on Salazar, but that's another issue is the compass. It's made to believe that because Jack gives up the compass, that's the reason why Salazar gets set free. But if I remember correctly, and maybe it's not the same, Jack didn't have the compass the entire time throughout this series. So they don't really explain it to me well enough where you would you can make your own conclusion that, okay, he willingly gave up the compass. That's what breaks it. But it feels like they just wrote this in and, well, we can try to make it a MacGuffin, just like Rick's tattoo in The Mummy Returns, which, by the way, you see his arm in the first Mummy and you don't see that tattoo. It's clear as day. So it's ridiculous. And they do the same thing here. So what are your thoughts on Salazar? And I'll let you talk about the compass portion of it. And Harrison, you can, jump in too on if you want to say anything about why the compass is important in this movie besides showing you what you want.
Yeah. So I had actually sort of thought the same thing you did, that, okay, so he gives it up and trades it for booze. Jack should know better than that, I guess. And that's the thing that makes Salazar's crew more able to do like something exactly. It's never quite clear to me exactly what that allows them to do, but I 100% saw the same thing. We're like, wait a second, Jack has been not in complete control of the compass at a variety of points of this series, and now all of a sudden, that's what allows Salazar to kind of do his thing. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, we're just going to kind of write that into the rough draft, and we'll kind of fine tune it later. We'll give it to somebody who like punches up scripts, and they'll kind of fine tune that bit for us. And then they just kind of forget to do that, and they just shoot it. Like, all right, it's good enough, whatever, let's go ahead. Like, it's just, it's poor screenwriting, and it's I don't know, it's not really respecting your audience very well to do that. I mean, Jack's in purgatory for the entire first third of the third movie. Like, he doesn't have the compass at all. He's not alive. He's not in the land of the living at all. Like, how does that work? Harrison mentioned the water effect of Salazar, while on land, and he still has, everything feels like he's still underwater, and it's a really cool effect. And I think that's one of those things that, as you get through this series and you start running out of character design, like you got to come up with something. I'm not quite sure where they go next, because it feels like they've done just about everything, unless they go to true ghosts. I don't know. But to try to keep the character designs feeling different and unique, you got to do something. And I sort of liked what they did with that. The one thing I do find really annoying about the overall scheme and design of the character, what's with the wheezing? Really, can we talk about this? Like the constant wheezing that Salazar does. And I feel like he says, Jack Sparrow, about 483 times in the movie. And I don't know why he does it. It's kind of like annoying. It's one of those things, like if you did a shot every time he said Jack Sparrow, like you'd be passed out dead, like halfway into the movie. So please don't do that. I don't recommend that. But and just, he has this wheezing thing going on, and I don't really understand it. Like it doesn't add anything to the character for me. It's just kind of annoying. I don't know why it's there. It kind of bothers me a little bit. I don't know. Am I off base on that?
No, I agree.
Yeah, I was going to say, Harrison, I'm going to let you go and talk about the compass or anything, but yeah, I think there's a lot left to be desired for a character that, again, in the trailers looked like a return to form and intimidating.
Yeah, sorry I interrupted there. My thoughts about the compass is that as soon as like the things started shaking, I was like, okay, what the heck is going on? Like, wait, what did he do with the compass? And then later, when it's explained in that flashback that he's never to betray it, I was like, I can count multiple times on my hand where I saw him toss the compass to somebody else and say, here, you use it. Like, you have your way with it. I mean, he gives it to Will before Will goes aboard the Flying Dutchman, or not the Flying Dutchman, the East India Trading Company ship. I can't remember what it's called. Like suddenly now, and like Rob said, I felt kind of cheated as an audience member. Like, hey, I kept with you through On Stranger Tides, and this is how you treat me? Like
I came back after you did that to me.
Right. And so it's just, I don't know. It really does, like, I'm stealing the words from Rob here, that it's just something that you put in the rough draft. You're like, oh, hey, we need to get the MacGuffin in that, and the antagonist and the protagonist all together. How can we do that? And it was just, kind of the thing you write in pencil to fix later. And then they're like, oh, well, let's just go with it. And it feels really weak. And it's also, here's the thing that I'll just say about the entire film, whether it's the compass, the idea behind the story being kind of like the same pattern that Rob pointed out, or the characters like we've been talking about, and people being an afterthought, like you said, Matt, it just seems like they're watering down the parts that worked more and more, while never really understanding why they worked. It just feels really cheap. And that's why I feel sick of the plot and how it works and how it plays out pretty much the exact same, because I've seen this before and I've seen it so much better, and I can rewatch The Black Pearl, The Curse of the Black Pearl, or whatever other film over and over again, and it's fantastic. Where this is like, well, couldn't have you come up with something new? And it just leaves a lot to be desired. Normally the Pirates films didn't.
I mean, really, if you have to sum up why Salazar is not as good of a villain as some of the other ones we've seen, quite simply put, he's much more sadistic than the other ones, and he gets less annoyed by the overall silliness of everything that happens. Like, you couldn't see Salazar rolling his eyes at something Jack Sparrow says or does. Like, he doesn't really do that. And
Right.
almost every other villain in this series at some point gives Jack a 13-year-old girl level eye roll. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, you're serious right now. Like, I'm trying to be here all evil and stuff, and this is what you're doing. Like, you're just being silly again. Like, stop it. And you just can't imagine Salazar doing that. He's just too cruel.
Yeah, I think that's again, it's pretty sad because again, the actor that plays him is very talented, but it's the same tried and true formula. But Rob, I want to give you an opportunity here because let's turn the clock back a little bit. You said this movie is fun. I said this movie's fun. I don't hear a lot of fun in this movie, so tell me something you like about this movie. Turn the course a little bit here.
Sure. So, there's a lot of things to like about this, and I do want to talk about the things that I really do like. I want to kind of start at the beginning, and not the true beginning of this movie, but our introduction to Jack. And they start talking about this bank and this unimpenetrable vault. And for precisely 0 seconds, do you believe that Jack is not in the vault? Like, as they talk about, and the more they build it up, the more you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, Jack is in it. And even on my second watch through, already knowing that he's in it, I still don't care. Like, I'm still really excited to see what happens when they finally open it. And this whole opening where they're dragging the building through the town, like, it's just classic pirates absurdity that if you're into it, you just smile and you go along for the ride, and it's just fun. And there's a line at the beginning that I wrote down that I absolutely love, and it's where they're going through town, and they say, I'm not looking for trouble, and Jack responds with, "What a horrible way to live." Like, it's fantastic. There's so much fun there. Fast forward a little bit. Jack's being dragged out of jail to his execution, and he runs into his uncle Jackie. This bit to me is actually really funny. It's really not supposed to be funny because they're talking about execution, and not just execution. They're talking about like horrible ways to die, like terrible things that human beings have done to other human beings to execute them in the history of the world. And they're just talking about it like, oh yeah, like it's a Yelp review. I gave that guy 4 stars for how he disemboweled somebody. Like, it's really kind of messed up. But for whatever reason, I find that scene really, really funny. Slightly farther forward, we get into the scene, and this is not the first time we've seen a public execution set up in this series. And it kind of like really made me stop and think about it for a second, because before people could just like binge watch stuff on Netflix and Disney Plus, like, you went to public executions for entertainment. Like, that's kind of what you did. Like, you got dressed up and you went and you saw a criminal or an alleged criminal get killed in front of you. Like, that's what people did. And it's kind of messed up. And yet somehow when the guillotine is swinging around and the centrifugal force is making it go up and down, I think this is the only way you can ever play public execution for comedy. Like, it's, I kind of just those couple of scenes are always funny to me, and really a great time.
Yeah, I think those scenes are very fun. Harrison, what are your thoughts on that? Because I do enjoy the opening of the movie, even though the establishing shot of him in the vault is a little wonky when you stop and think about it. But Jack being Jack in the beginning of the movie is pretty good. I do like when he's going to the execution as well. I think that stuff works. But Harrison, where do you stand on things that work in this movie? Because I don't think I've really heard a lot of that.
Thanks for reminding me. So to comment about that bank scene, it started, and I had totally forgot it was what it was, and then I just knew it was going to happen. If you've listened to the Basement Binge, you probably know that Matt and Rob helped me with the Fast and the Furious movies. And someone had a great idea to copy and paste some great scenes from the Fast and Furious movie and put it in a Pirates movie with Jack Sparrow being 100% Jack Sparrow. And it's genuinely funny. It really is a great scene. The humor in this really works. While I mentioned that the side characters feel, or I didn't mention that, you said that, Matt, that they feel like an afterthought. I will say that the jokes that the characters have, side character or otherwise, are pretty funny. Gibbs appointing someone else as captain is hilarious. And then Henry joking that he saw her ankle, and he's like, "We would have seen a lot more if you kept your cake hole shut." It's so funny. And then when they bring the bro back, why is it shrunk? How does it unshrink? Maybe it's cold. Like, it's just, that's a great line. Maybe I shouldn't laugh at that, but it was hilarious. Like Matt's is kind of, or Rob's is kind of toilet humor. So there's just a lot of things in it that's like, okay, yeah, I can put aside my cynicism and just enjoy the fun that these movies are. Like, by no means is it one of those movies that while you're watching it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. When does it end? You're enjoying it. You're enjoying the journey. You're enjoying the venture. There's some weakness in it. You're not totally blown away, but you're engaged and you're enjoying it. And it is fun. It's when I finished the movie and I started to think, well, what did I think about this? Then I realized, I don't know. It's just kind of there. But while you're watching it, it captures the sense of adventure that the first three films really did well.
I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Is in the moment, it's great. It's kind of like Chinese food. When you're eating it, it's great. After you're finished, you kind of wonder why you did it.
Why Chinese food? What the heck?
I mean, that's my take on it. I don't know. Maybe it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for you, but I don't know. But there's my food take to Pirates of the Caribbean.
I thought you were gonna make a joke like spicy food, But that was so funny.
So moving on from food delights, let's talk one more time here and overall talk about the villain of this movie, because I want to bring up one more thing about Salazar in this movie. And the simple fact is, the way he goes out again isn't even enjoyable. And again, maybe that sounds really cruel, like somebody dying, but to me, that you don't even give him a really good send off. Like with Davy Jones, at least he got a good send off. I thought, even though the movie was pretty bad, again, at least the send off for Blackbeard was good. Barbossa in the first movie, just him getting shot and saying, "I feel." I thought the villains at least got a proper send off in their movies. To me, Salazar does not. Which again is just really disappointing. I feel like they really did this character a disservice in this movie, and I just wanted to briefly touch on that again.
You're not wrong about any of that. I want to talk about something that happens, maybe 10 minutes before that in the film. He can body swap, just randomly out of nowhere. I can just sort of take over this guy's body now. It's terrible. I don't really know what that truly added to the movie. I don't know what the benefit of it was, but I just out of nowhere, all of a sudden, he can just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to take over your body now." I absolutely hated that part.
Harrison, where do you stand on him?
Yeah, the ending as a whole was just kind of like, okay, we got Moses in here, we got the dumbest design for a trident, and then anchor. And then he just goes down like a chump. And he also just suddenly goes in somebody's body and then until he's not in his body. I don't know. It just was like too many things are happening at once that are all just kind of like, hey, we need a big final battle over the MacGuffin, and we've done it on ships multiple times. We had a maelstrom. Moses, he did something in the sea. Let's use that guy. And it just, I don't know. Again, it kind of feels just like, we need something to be here. Anyone got an idea?
Well, so it's funny you mentioned that. One of the things that really occurs to me, so you kind of have a variety of weird things happening all at once. So they're going after the Trident. They find that the object belonging to a Greek god is somehow in the Caribbean because reasons. I don't understand that. Why is it there of all places? Just because they needed something that people would associate with the ocean and the sea, so they went with the Greek god of the sea. Just like that to me is all of a sudden out of nowhere. It just kind of hit me. And then you cut the thing in half, and that breaks all the curses because basically that's just what the script needed. Like when you start asking yourself why during the climax of this movie, you don't have good answers to why really at all. We'd kind of talked about the how Salazar gets offed. We kind of talked a little bit about Barbosa and Karina recognizing each other as father daughter. There's the whole climax really is a bit of a mess. I guess is what I would say. And like, why is any of this happening? Like, why is the parting of the sea happening? Like, what exactly is going on at any one point, other than that's just sort of what the script called for, and that was the big set piece moment that they wanted to do for the climax of this movie. There's not a lot really else that explains it.
Yeah, there's not a lot. It's just there. Hey, we haven't done this, so let's do this, and it can be devoid of logic or anything else that we need to do in the Pirates movies. But I will say it's very short and very, very brief. But after this movie concludes with the big battle scene, the one thing that I do really like is it was really cool to see Will coming up over the hill with his son, and then to finally see Elizabeth for the briefest of moments. But it was cool to see them together. It made me remember, like, yeah, I do like these characters together. And boy, I wish I would have gotten to see more of that, because to me, the chemistry just bounced right back, even though it was a simple, like, them seeing each other and kissing. Like, you felt, again, like, to me, those two characters worked together, and there was genuine emotion in the fact of them seeing each other. So I really did like that. I think it was a nice way to sort of end the movie. I still wish we would have gotten more.
There's something quite magical about seeing Will come back and seeing Henry and knowing that his son had something to do with his freedom of his curse, which, by the way, just real quick. So if all the curses of the sea are now ended, how exactly are they going to do future Pirates movies? Because that's what they're all based on. But I digress. Seeing Will come back and acknowledging Henry, and then seeing Elizabeth with him, there's really something magical about this. And it didn't really hit me that way on the first viewing, but I'll tell you, when you've watched one of these movies a week for 5 weeks in a row, like we have, being able to watch these films in short succession and seeing, especially the first three, where that relationship does work so well and it is so compelling, and has its peaks and valleys, and it's complex. It's not just a simple love story. Seeing them get to this point again after what happens in the events of the third movie, it's really quite magical. It's really the only adjective that I've got for it.
Harrison, how do you feel about that ending scene? And I do like the fact that it's, reminiscent and certainly mimics the facts that Will was able to save his father, and now his son saved him. I like how that is a carryover from the trilogy. That's, again, why this movie feels, more like the fourth film than actually the fifth film. But, Harrison, how'd you feel when they reunited?
I enjoyed it. That was. I'm married. I'm a big softie to romance, so that is easy to direct line to my heart, so to speak. Especially with characters that we've professed our love for so much. So that scene, with what you just said, I didn't think about that. I think it adds even more goodness to it. That it follows the same story of a son setting his father free, in the same way, and finding love and becoming a pirate in the process. So what goes around comes around. But it's a decent scene. The thing that's weird for me, though, I don't know if you know this, and I only found this out by accident. There's an end credit scene, like all the way at the end. Did either of you watch it?
Oh yeah, I watched it. I watched it the very first time. I don't leave a movie until the screen's completely 100% done.
Damn you, Feige! I sit through end credits. I sit through credits for movies that don't have end credit scenes, all because of Feige.
Well, at least you get to appreciate all the people who made the movie. So applause for that. But I watched the scene and I was like, what was the point of that? Like, that made no sense. I don't know. It was weird. And it makes me feel like almost like they added this really sweet moment just so they could set the breadcrumbs for a sequel if they wanted to. And I'm being cynical on it, but it kind of takes like the genuineness away from it.
No, it is rather weird because you sit there and you're like, oh, wait. Like for the briefest of seconds, I was like, man, that's cool. Like, wait, what is that? And then I go, well, wait a minute. If all the curses are lifted, how is Davy Jones still in existence? Like what? Wait a minute. Because you think maybe it's a dream, and then they show that there's, the leftover barnacles on the ground. So it's just, it makes you sit there and go, well, how would that even be possible? So yeah, it quickly went from, oh, what's going on here to what the heck is going on here?
So it doesn't make sense. And not only does it not make sense, it has no point. Because if what they were ultimately trying to do was get people excited about another Pirates movie, all you have to do is just say, hey, there's going to be another Pirates movie. Johnny Depp's back. Hans Zimmer's back. Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley are back. You guys want to see this? Oh, you do? Okay, good. That's it. That's what you have to do. Your movie makes money. You don't have to put this end credit scene that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's certainly odd. I can't wrap my head around like what it would mean, and certainly it doesn't seem like we would ever find out what was there an intention there, or was it just I guess we'll figure it out, or who cares? We don't have to figure it out. We can just be lazy. So it's very odd that this happened. Because there really seems to be no logical reason for it. So, we've talked a lot, seems like mostly about some of the negative when you stop to think about the movie after the viewing experience is over. But where do you guys stand here on, with a movie like this, Rob, going for a favorite scene? I think I could guess, but where do you stand here with what really sticks out to you about this movie that you look back fondly on?
Yeah, for me, it's the scene that I talked about with the executions. And that sounds like, just saying that sounds funny. Like, that's just wild to say, because that's something that's not intended, like should never be funny. And yet somehow it adds the element of the kind of terrible things that happen in the world of pirates. And somehow, there's Jack Sparrow somehow always finding a way out of trouble, always getting the perfect bounce, so to speak. The coin lands on the side and it always comes up heads for him, no matter what he does. It's just a really good time. I almost want to say that final scene where kind of we get Will and Elizabeth reunited again. I actually would like to say that's my favorite scene. It's just not long enough, and sadly, we just don't get enough of them for that to become my favorite scene. But for me, the Pirates movies, when you're talking about favorite scenes, it's always going to be the wild, crazy action scenes.
Yeah, 100%. Harrison, what scene stands out to you in this movie that you look back and go, yeah, that's the scene from this movie that I'll remember?
Uh, Definitely kind of the opening. I think the execution scene where Jack is in the spinning guillotine that almost chops off his head a bunch, and just that whole scene is really fun. And then Henry catching, I can't remember her name again. Why is her name? I can't. Rob, you said this was going to happen, and now it's happened. What is her name? Whatever.
Her name is Karina. Yeah.
Karina. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, yeah, that opening scene, not opening scene, but however long it is, that was really fun. It felt like Pirates. It was just, it made no sense whatsoever, but it's funny. And then Gibbs and Jack are arguing about how much Gibbs is going to pay him for saving him. I mean, what? It's just funny. And it comes right after they pull a bank through a town with horses, Fast and the Furious style. Like, it's just, it is goofy fun that isn't worried about MacGuffins yet. It isn't worried about side characters that end up being a side thought. It is just genuine fun, and it's great to watch. And so I'll remember that opening.
Yeah, I totally agree on that with you guys. That opening is, oh, hey, it looks like we might get pirates. This is going to be good. I do have to give, a recognition to the scene with first seeing Will Turner on the Dutchman. I did like seeing him back, just the kid out in the middle of the ocean and dropping anchor. I thought that was really good. I thought it was a good introduction. Sadly, it leads to, nothing except for Will at the end, but I did like that. And again, that whole bank heist thing, the vault, it really for the time being was like, oh, we're back to pirate form. Unfortunately, it doesn't stick around long enough to successfully be what I think is an entertaining, entry on the level of the first three. But what would be your least favorite scene? Is there something in here where you're just like, I literally could skip that if I had to watch this movie again?
So I would originally I was going to go with the zombie sharks. I thought that was stupid. I thought the CG was pretty bad on it too. But there's one that's a little worse than that, and it's not long afterwards. The scene where Jack is being forced to wed somebody, it's mean-spirited. It adds nothing to the film.
It's
adds
horrible.
Nothing to the story. And it's not funny. That scene does not belong in this movie or this series, or really any movie I could ever think of.
Yeah, no, it serves no point. I didn't get any kind of laugh out of it. I literally remember watching it twice now, like Rob, when you and I watched it, and then watching it again, like both times, like in my head, it was just like, why does this exist? We talked about it, Rob, previously, where you film it, you go back, you watch it, and you sit there and go, so you didn't think to just cut that? Like, really, you saw that and said, yes, this makes the movie better? Because I can't imagine anybody watched that and said, yeah, this needs to stay. Harrison, do you agree with that as being like something that just absolutely needs to be out, or do you have something else that's even in your eyes worse than that?
Oh yeah, what the heck was that?
What the heck is even that?
It's not even funny. Like, it's supposed to be this big joke, and I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into this too much. If you didn't know, Johnny Depp was going through a horrible divorce at the time of this movie, and you can see it in his countenance. Like, he is just downtrodden in a lot of the scenes. I was reading about the film that a lot of the time he would show up just horribly late for set, and so they actually had a producer who would sit outside his house and wait for him to turn on the lights, and then tell the crew to start getting ready, saying Johnny Depp is finally up. So knowing that he's going through that, and then also just tagging in this really weird scene, just the two of those things kind of crossing over into the film, it's like, this is just absolutely unnecessary. It's not funny. Why is it here? Like, oh, there's this random other dude who happens to be on this island who also has some beef with Jack, but he's willing to settle the beef if he marries his sister, and we're going to make her horrendously disgusting and unnecessarily and unlikely revolting in a weird way, and force them to get married. Like, I don't know. Is this something that we joke about with our friends on a Saturday afternoon? Like, who comes up with these ideas?
I mean, Matt and I were just joking about a sham marriage earlier today. So I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe somebody does.
I guess I was wrong. I stand corrected.
No, not at all. This scene's terrible.
Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. It's really, I mean, notwithstanding on Stranger Tides just being unnecessary as a movie, this is probably one of the most unnecessary scenes in the entire franchise for Pirates. It's so misplaced and so out of touch. It absolutely does not need to be here. So I'm in total agreement with that. With that being said, the Pirates series, 5 movies. I think this is a really good time to really talk about as a whole, where we think this ranks and then what we think about Pirates as a whole. Again, 5 weeks, pirate movie after pirate movie after pirate movie, some of them a very long time since the last time we watched it. I want to talk about where we think Pirates sits for us with the movies. But before we do that, a little bit of a miscalculation in my thoughts during the opening here. We did not do Rummage for the Rotten to honor the basement binge. So, Harrison, I apologize for not giving your show the due diligence and going through that segment. So, before we get into franchise appeal and how we're going to rank this, Rob, I'll let you go first. Who do you think is going to be the Rotten for this movie?
I actually don't think it's going to be me. Matt, I think it's going to be you. I think Harrison will be in the middle. I think I probably like this movie the most.
I'm going to guess me as well. Harrison, where do you stand?
I was going to say me until you voted for yourself, and now all confidence has gone out the window. But for the purpose of this being a competition that we win absolutely nothing for, and just because I got to take a shot to have a chance of winning this pointless competition, I'm going to vote.
Well, I would not say we wouldn't win anything, because if I am the Rotten, you are definitely doing Electra or Catwoman. That's
okay. Well, then it's definitely me. Also, I'll reveal my real rating last.
You can go 0.05 below Matt.
Right.
Oh, man. So, all right, Rob, starting, you can talk about whatever you want from this franchise. And I'm just going to start it off with, again, I do think this franchise should have ended with a trilogy. I think this is one where, looking back on it, I think it would be very, very fondly remembered had the third one ended. People had time to go back, rewatch these movies. I think there's a much better appreciation than originally what the third movie got and how Pirates was looked at. Sadly, I think with the fourth and the fifth one to some degree, even though it's definitely not as bad, I don't feel like Pirates is going to be remembered as fondly as I wish it would be with these last 2 installments. What are your thoughts on the fact that it probably should have ended at the trilogy, but at the end of the day, money makes decisions?
Yeah, money's always going to make decisions. And this is one where I'm going to throw you a hypothetical. So let's say that they end this with the third one and they wait a couple years with nothing, not even a rumor that they're still thinking about it. And then they announce a new trilogy, and the whole cast is back. That to me, I think would have gotten people really excited in ways that, and everybody was signed for the trilogy. Like, we weren't worried that, Orlando Bloom or Keira Knightley were going to not be able to come to terms on a contract. Like, they do it with the intention of creating, to borrow from the MCU, a connected universe. That to me, I think would have gotten people really excited about it. It's hard to really talk about how the Pirate series in general is regarded in 2021 without acknowledging that Johnny Depp's got himself in a little bit of trouble. I think there are people that have made decisions about how they will regard people who are accused of some of the things that he allegedly did or said or happened, and will not partake in any sort of media that involves those people. And look, you have the right to decide to do that. I have no interest in talking about any of those kinds of things. I do think that the way people regard this film is tainted slightly or even greatly by the public perception of him, how poorly that divorce went, and whether or not you think he did anything egregiously wrong, which again, I'm not interested in discussing. The things that we do know he probably did are, if not necessarily egregiously wrong, pretty messed up. Like this is a man who needs some help. I think it's hard for a lot of people to separate that because the Pirate series is so connected to him and the character of Jack Sparrow. I think it's hard for a lot of people to separate that. And I think that's partly why maybe this series doesn't get the shine of, say, Indiana Jones or something along those lines.
So, Rob, I think those are some good points. And I'm going to separate for a second here because, Harrison, I know, just like me, you understand what Rob just said, and you read between the lines. The third one comes out, they wait some time, they announce a new trilogy with the original cast, and the second movie is just as good as The Last Jedi for Star Wars. Rob, I understand what you were going with. I appreciate you finally coming around and subtly admitting your love for that. So,
oh my God,
that's where it comes down to.
I did not see that coming.
We need that air horn buzzer thing because Rob just got donked on. That was
epic.
But Rob's secret love affair for The Last Jedi notwithstanding, Harrison, where do you feel about the Pirate series as a whole, ending in a trilogy, or, how does this series get remembered? How do you remember the Pirate series?
Yeah, to answer that question, how do we remember it? Everybody talks about the first three movies. I mean, I have been going to physical therapy lately, and one weekend they asked what I was doing. What are you going to do this week? I said, I'm actually recording a podcast with a friend. They're like, oh, what about it? I told them about the podcast and told them about Matt Goes to the Movies. They said, what movie? I said, Pirates of the Caribbean. And my physical therapist, her assistant, and then somebody across the room all chimed up and said, oh, yeah, those movies are great. And then they all proceeded to talk about the first three movies. And then later, they were asking again, and they're like, oh, what are you doing again? I said, oh, we're doing another Pirates episode. She said, I thought you'd already done those. They said, oh, no, there's 5 of them. She said, there's 5 of them. So, I mean, people love those first 3 movies, rightfully so. And even this, I mean, we won't talk about the 4th one, but this 5th one here, I'm looking at Box Office Mojo on a budget of $230 million, which, oh my gosh, that's a lot. It made $794 million, almost $800 million worldwide. That's pretty good. Domestically, not so much, but internationally, it did a great job. People like the Pirates movies. And if you can tap into the box office legacy that we're currently making for ourselves, where we're only really interested in reboots and sequels for some reason, and you can do it well. You can manage your budget well, you can get a good cast involved, and you can kind of separate yourself from it in a good way. Or you can bring back the original cast. Those are kind of your 2 hopes, I would think. Bring back the original cast, or separate yourself from it entirely, kind of like a Hobbs and Shaw type thing, and say, hey, we want to make another Pirates movie. They're really fun. We're going to be doing it with these people, and this is kind of the direction we're going. And then make a good movie. And I think people will show up to one of those 2 things. I mean, like you said, money talks. We are going to see a new Pirates of the Caribbean movie within the next 5 years. I have no doubt.
100%. So 5 movies, lots of things going on. Rob, you have to pick one scene from 5 movies. What is your fondest memory of Pirates of the Caribbean?
There's so many great scenes that, you think about the action scenes that are throughout this series, there's so much creativity and so many things they've showed us that we've never seen before. I have to go to, and it's not even a movie that I particularly care for out of the series, but the second film, Dead Man's Chest, when we have the one-on-one-on-one sword fight that turns into the water wheel scene, that to me is just an incredible design of a scene, of an action scene from a creativity standpoint, showing us things that we've never seen before. And not only doing that, but actually executing it. To try to make three characters fight one another and have it look believable and have it work is so impressive to me. Having worked in fight choreography for stage and tiny little bit for film, just knowing how difficult that is to do, to try to make a believable fight scene between two people, let alone three people who are all fighting each other at the same time. That to me, I'm just amazed by. I continue to be amazed by, and it's among my favorite action scenes in all of cinema.
That's a very good choice. It is very impressive watching that and how it does seem so believable that all three of those individuals are fighting each other and nobody's taking a break, waiting. It's so well choreographed. And again, the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of quick cuts. It's, Pirates at its best when they're having those sword fights where it's believable. That's a really, really good scene. It's goosebumps when I watch it now, get great enjoyment out of it. Harrison, same question to you. If somebody said, okay, Pirates of the Caribbean movies, tell me what you remember most about it, where would you go?
Yeah, I think it's going to change, from time to time. But this watch through, without a doubt, it's going to be the marriage scene that Barbossa does with Elizabeth and Will at the end of That World's End. There's a lot of scenes that I can point out, and I agree with both of those that you mentioned. I think it kind of depends on my mood and what my mind is remembering. But right now, that's the one that I like. Because this watch through, that was the surprise hit for me. The others you mentioned, I already knew that I liked. This one, I didn't know I liked it that much, and so that's like the one I'm remembering right now.
Yeah, I think, that's, like you said, I think you can maybe change from time to time. I will say that the thing that I will always bring up when I talk about Pirates, at least for me, the first thing I would bring up is the ending scene. Well, not the ending, but the ending battle of Dead Man's Chest where the Kraken attacks the ship. I think that's really well done. I think there's a lot of tension there. Not necessarily when he eats Jack, because again, that CGI is questionable at best. But just him terrorizing the ship, thinking Jack's leaving, coming back. I love that. I could YouTube that scene or Disney Plus that scene so many times over that it's just super enjoyable to me throughout the entire series.
All great choices, and still, like I could waffle back and forth. If I didn't love the water wheel scene so much, I could easily pick the wedding scene from the third one or the blacksmith fight from the first one.
Right.
There's so many great scenes in the first one. Like I said when we reviewed it, it's a perfect adventure action movie. There's so few things that I dislike about it. You could pick probably 3 or 4 scenes from the first one. If you said that was your favorite of the series, I'd go, yeah, that's a good scene. I could get that.
Yeah, I will say too that one thing that I want to point out, just because, again, thinking of it as a conclusion to the trilogy, I really have a fond memory and a real soft spot for Will becoming the captain of the Dutchman and the conversation with his father where he tells him he's free. Bootstrap says he still has a debt to pay. And then just talking about Elizabeth and where they're going, how she can't be there. and how it's a pretty steep price to pay to be the captain of the Dutchman, and Will, like, dedicated as ever. Just as it depends on the day. I really like that. It's one of the, it's not action or anything like that, but I think it's a perfect bookend to how he feels about Elizabeth, what he thought his duty was to his father to save him from the Dutchman. I think that is really well done, and something that I wouldn't have thought to have seen in a Pirates movie, to be like, wow, that has some genuine emotion behind it and really fits his character.
It's not the highlight of this of the series. The highlight of the Pirate series is the action scenes. It's the big set piece moments. The little parts that get you there, in some cases, I think are really underrated. And I think you mentioned a really good one. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, we kind of talked about the ending of the film. Having another one of those moments too, that when you've bought into who these characters are and you enjoy them, there are these moments that you can find. I think even like Elizabeth's father in the first two, I'm trying to think if he's alive in the third one or not. It's not coming into my head right now. I fully believe that there is a loving relationship between father and daughter. There were so many ways that they could have taken the lazy way out when they were writing those characters and made that relationship much more adversarial, or made him much more disapproving of her choices, that they didn't do. And it's a better film for it. But even those things, I think, just really, really work well. And I don't know that necessarily get the recognition of some of the crazier parts.
Yeah, Harrison, where do you stand on some of those? Again, they're not the big action sets, but some deep meaning in these Pirates movies, which, again, when it first started, I did not expect to get.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't think any of us were. I think that that's one of those things that makes them memorable, because, I mean, how many movies have we seen that have great action scenes that just kind of fall by the wayside? And I think that those action scenes have so much lasting power, because it's not just, oh, hey, look, two characters are fighting. It's, oh, hey, look, two people who really have conflicting emotions are fighting each other over something that they need. And there's emotion and actual personality, so to speak. That's not the right word, but in the fight scenes, that they're actually memorable. Not just in the fight scenes, but how that emotion carries over from those other moments we've been.
Well said. Rob, last thoughts, the Pirates franchise and this journey that we've taken over the last 5 weeks on this show.
Yeah, so I've said before that kind of one of my favorite things about doing this, outside of hanging out with my friends, is having an excuse to either watch something that I haven't gotten around to, or rewatching something that I haven't seen in a while, but I wouldn't necessarily make the time to go rewatch for other reasons, because I'm so far behind on the other things that I do watch and enjoy, or read or play or whatever it is, that it's tough for me to justify going back and revisiting something I've already seen or already done. And having the chance to, sort of make an excuse to do the thing, go see some of these things again, is really great. I've mentioned before that it's actually changed my opinion on some films that we've watched. Matrix Reloaded coming to mind as kind of the big one that I had a different opinion of on my most recent rewatch, and I was glad I had the opportunity to do that. I really think that kind of what we just did, watching these films, 5 of them, one film every week, it does give you a new appreciation for this series. I think skip the 4th one. Okay, just do 4 weeks. Watch 1, 2, 3, and then watch 5. And then when you get to the end of 5, you do feel differently about this movie because of how they bring it full circle. And there really is a payoff there if you've watched them in short succession. The first time I'd seen this film, the ending actually didn't mean as much to me, because it'd been so long since I had seen the other ones. So I recommend it. They're on Disney Plus. Binge them all. No, sorry, not all of them. 1, 2, 3, and then 5. Binge 1, 2, 3, and then 5, and that's what I recommend.
Yeah, Harrison, what are your thoughts on just the overall where we were when we started to where we are now with Pirates.
Rob just continually says things better than I can, so that's frustrating. But also,
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just talked about at the beginning of this how I was so busy, and there's films that clearly we all enjoy. These Pirates films, I mentioned how much I love them. That in the busyness of the day, I don't think, oh yeah, let me rewatch this again and let me like really recuperate that love for it. And so this podcast has been a great reason to do that and be reminded how good these movies are. When you don't rewatch things and as you experience more movies that you really like, you're like, oh, maybe this other movie isn't as good. And then you start to watch and you're like, oh, it is. And yeah, it's just one that combing through these again has been enjoyable. It does have its low points. Not all of them are as great as others. And one of them, we just want to disappear. But for the most part, it's good fun. They're great to watch. And those first three films, not that the fifth isn't. The fifth is great fun. But the first three films are great fun while also being a great story that's really captivating and engaging. And is a lot more than just a swashbuckling adventure. There's more to it this time around that I noticed.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I want to state it, is going back, watching these movies because of the podcast, especially the first three. There's more than just a lot of fun and humor. There's good character development. There's strong bonds and things that, depending on when you first watch this movie, maybe that's not what you're looking for at the time frame when these movies came out. Certainly lives change and what's important to you changes as you, get older or go through different experiences. And I think that's helped me appreciate some of the things in the Pirates movies a little bit more, watching them again at different points in my life. So, like you guys said, it's been a blast to be able to do some of these things that I probably wouldn't watch had it not been for two really good friends of mine being able to do this podcast with. So, I'm super appreciative for it. And I'm glad we were able to do the Pirate series because we really picked it almost on a whim. We kind of threw it off the top of our head, like, well, what if we did Pirates? And then it was, yeah, let's do Pirates. And before you knew it, we were here, and now we're done, so to speak. So,
yeah, I definitely kind of mentioned this. I think I forget which one it was, but in getting ready for doing one of the episodes, I had said to my wife, "Yeah, hey, let's watch something." And she had said to me that hey, we got a minute or two. The kids are in bed. Neither of us have to be anywhere super early tomorrow. Let's watch something. I was like, "Well, hey, I've got going to be recording an episode on Pirates of the Caribbean. Do you want to watch Pirates?" And she was like, "Yeah, I want to watch Pirates." Like, there's really not a time that somebody will say to you, "Hey, do you want to watch Pirates?" And you're going to be like, "Nah, I'm good." Unless somebody suggests Kingdom of the Stranger Skulls on Crystal Tides. That's the only one that I think you'd say, "I'm good." Are you okay? Like, are
right.
you on drugs? Outside of that, if somebody says, "Hey, let's watch Pirates," you're like, "I'm in."
Yeah, 100%. Good fun. You can find, again, first three, you can find a lot of different reasons to like those. So, finishing off Dead Men Tell No Tales, when we last talked about this franchise and On Stranger Tides, Harrison, obviously you weren't there with us, but we had done our rankings for all the movies. So I'm going to go first with where I labeled all these movies and then how I rate Dead Men Tell No Tales. So to start off, I have Dead Man's Chest at number 1. I have Curse of the Black Pearl at number 2, at World's End at number 3. I had Dead Men Tell No Tales at number 4, and I had On Stranger Tides at number 5. After rewatching, nothing has changed. That is still my ranking, but I do rate this movie 2.5 reels out of 5 for Dead Men Tell No Tales. So Harrison wanted to go last. Rob, where do you stand with Dead Men Tell No Tales? And did this change after you talk about your previous rankings for these movies?
So I can distinctly remember first time I watched this movie. I'm in your backyard. The end credits roll. the end credit scene rolls, fades to black, you're disconnecting your phone. And I looked and I said 3.75 stars or reels. I distinctly remember saying that. And rewatching it, and I think part of me is influenced by the fact that I have watched these one film a week, for 5 consecutive weeks, where the ending of this movie really does pay off a person that does that. I honestly believe that just the ending alone being as magical as I described it earlier actually bumps this up a little bit. So my original watch through, I kind of figured 3.75 reels. I actually bumped this up to 4.15 reels just on the simple fact of what a great cap this is to this series, assuming that they go in a completely different direction with other characters, for the future of the franchise. So I did not change my rankings at all from the last time we'd done this. The only change I had actually made was after rewatching At World's End. I actually swapped At World's End with Dead Men Tell No Tales 2 to 3. So I have number 1 is Curse of the Black Pearl, At World's End number 2. This film, Dead Men Tell No Tales, at number 3. Dead Man's Chest, which I liked a lot less than you guys did, at number 4. And then On Stranger Tides, just like everybody else with that's sentient, at number 5.
Yeah, surprising score there. So, Harrison, moment of truth. Where does this rank?
Okay. Well, let me do my rankings first. So, ranking it before we started the show, whatever. My brain. Holy smokes! Let me take a step back. My rankings. Number 1, At World's End, still the same. 2, Curse of the Black Pearl. 3, Dead Man's Chest. 4, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and 5, On Stranger Tides. It stays the same. That's how it is. As far as my real rating, no joke, I did not change it because of what Matt said. It is 2.5. Just solid 2.5. Just middle of the road average, where I don't have too much negative to say about it. I don't have too much positive to say about it. And the positive and negatives that I do have to say kind of cancel each other out, where it's fun while I watch it and I quickly forget about it, for good and for bad. So yeah, 2.5, just straight down the middle.
All right. So since we tied, the compromise is we have to do Batman and Robin.
Oh no,
that's not as bad.
Oh, that one's at least so bad that it's good.
No, it really is. It's heightened by the fact that George Clooney knows he absolutely ruined Batman and continually to this day apologizes for it.
Even better.
I do kind of feel like I spent most of my time talking about the things that don't work for this film, and I think people might be hearing like 4.15. Like you said, you hated it. I think this is another example of if the Pirates formula works for you, you'll probably like this movie, and you'll probably forgive the aspects of it that don't work as well. You might even still like the Pirates formula in general and just be unable to forgive some of the things that don't work. It's really like by the way, you guys aren't wrong at all for giving it 2.5. Like I go, okay, I could see why a person would do that. I don't see why a person would like The Last Jedi, but that's another topic for another day.
You're just gonna resist.
This is one of those ones that you like. If you say you like this movie, okay, I get it. If you say you don't like this movie, I get that too.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that, again, I thoroughly enjoy about talking about movies with you guys is you're very similar in the fact that, okay, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And it's always interesting to sit there and talk with you guys because, okay, does it, how do I really feel about this? And once somebody starts talking in a certain direction of, well, this is how I interpret it. And like, yeah, I didn't think of it like that. Or, well, no, I have a totally different thing. Because I know certainly some of my views, the more I think about you guys like articulating on certain movies that we've talked about, where I'm like, that's a really good point. And like, even after the podcast was done, I've gone back and watched a couple of movies again where I'm like, interesting. I see what they're saying there. Or again, in Rob's case, just I don't know why you're so hell bent on saying you don't like The Last Jedi. That'll be like a different story. But yeah, Rob, that's actually, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty. I am surprised by that, based on the conversation during, the podcast. I am a little surprised by that score, but again, I definitely, knowing how you felt like when we watched it, I can definitely see that being the score there.
Yeah, it's again, it's about how much are you willing to forgive and how much do you enjoy the things that really work, and those are levers that only you can decide for yourself. It's like I said, if you say that you can't excuse certain things, I go, yeah, I totally get it. I wish they would have made better choices in some of the screenwriting, or how much of certain characters they chose to feature. But at the end of the day, it's still, if you just watch this movie in a vacuum without necessarily considering it as part of the whole franchise, it's still a blast. It's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So what I'd like to do before we sign off is, one, I do want to say a very special thank you to Harrison, because over the past week and a half, Harrison sent me a little gift, which again, Harrison, you and I, we've talked about this, Rob as well. This podcast has turned the three of us. Obviously, Rob and I knew each other before, but this podcast has turned the three of us into really good friends. And we've never officially met Harrison in person because we live in different states. But Harrison was nice enough to send me Logan in 1917 in 4K, no less, which I have not been able to watch yet, but I am super looking forward to it. So, for listeners, that's just a kind of a plug to say Harrison's a great guy. Listen to his show. It's awesome. He's awesome. I totally appreciate the friendship that we formed, and take another second to talk about the Basement Binge.
Well, thank you, Matt. That was very, very nice of you. I was sad last week when I missed the episode with you guys. So knowing, oh yeah, we get together and we get to talk about this. It was fun. This friendship has been a blast. The Basement Binge, yeah, it's a podcast very similar to this. Talked about it at the beginning. I binge movies and trying to make them meaningful while also just having a ton of fun. I'm excited now that I can breathe after releasing 5 James Bond episodes 5 days in a row. That was a lot of work. That I can get into some Halloween movies. Dune is coming out. We've got Fast and the Furious that we did earlier this year with Matt, Rob, and myself. That was a blast. So yeah, more things are coming out the Basement Binge. But if you like movies and you like Matt Goes to the Movies, you'll probably like the Basement Binge. And I would appreciate it if you check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again, Matt, for the chance to talk about it. I really do hope that there is a review coming on 1917 whenever you get that 4K projector you're telling me about, because I would love to listen to that.
Yeah, that should be coming in the mail next week, so I'm super looking forward to that. But yeah, I will definitely be doing a review on that. So thank you again for that. That was awesome. I look forward to watching that. And Rob, we got a couple things coming out on Matt Goes to the Movies. Speaking of like Halloween stuff, 4 in general that we're going to do together. Why don't you run us through those before we sign off?
Yeah. So next up is going to be 28 Days Later, which is my favorite zombie movie of all time. If listeners are interested in, we're going to do 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. We're going to do the Zack Snyder version of Dawn of the Dead, and then his most recent film, Army of the Dead. Listeners, if you're hearing this and you want to kind of have a chance to go back and visit those, if you haven't seen those in a while, or if you've never seen some of those films, the 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later is currently on HBO Max. So if you want to get, if you want to rewatch one of those before you hear us break it down, definitely recommend checking those out. 28 Days Later is a phenomenal film that I don't think gets enough credit for it being as good as it is. And then, of course, Army of the Dead is on Netflix. Dawn of the Dead, I've not looked up recently to see where it's streaming, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But definitely, if you want to get caught up and check those out before we get a chance to talk about it, that's where you can find those.
Yeah, I certainly am looking forward to those. As much as I've talked about almost everything else on this podcast, I'm really looking forward to getting into some of the horror genre, because that really is my bread and butter. That's really from a young age where I started watching films, Friday the 13th and Halloween. So I'm looking forward to talking about those movies. And again, in the show notes, check out the Basement Binge. You're going to have Harrison's link to listen to the show. Give that a try if you haven't already. It's a great show. For Rob and myself, he's such a huge help on Matt Goes to the Movies. He's a part of a lot of episodes and has his extended podcast universe, which he'll be releasing another episode shortly. Our contact is always in the show notes as well. So listeners, again, before we sign off, thank you for listening. It's amazing. Keep interacting with the show. Let us know what you want to hear. And until next time, this has been a Pirates of the Caribbean recap, which has been a ton of fun. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.